So let's jump into whiskey, the types of whiskeys that we have, right? So if you've been with us for the past few days, which I've been on, today I'm a little late, but please forgive me. I'm in fucking San Diego, right? It is 8:46 here, which is normally earlier than what I do. And I know it's like 11, almost 12 in Ohio. So please forgive me. A few days we talked about Irish whiskey. That has been the subject of our deep dive. If you want to see the full entire video, you guys can subscribe to my subscribers. It's 99 cents. Or if you want to be free and cheap like myself, go to my YouTube channel and you can see the condensed version of the histories of Irish whiskey. So remember, Irish whiskey, they started out, just a little quick, refresher. Irish whiskey started out, they were new, they took over the world, they were #1 all over the place. Then the coffee still came along, which is also known as a continuous still. That still, which is a way to distill liquor, was introduced into the spirits game. The Irish whiskey industry did not want to fuck with it because they removed some volatile but also some flavorful notes that make Irish whiskey taste the way that it tastes. And because they did not want to adapt to the new processes, they gave that process to other spirits makers, which helped them shoot to the top. And Irish whiskey kind of lost its footing. But they did make a comeback because, everyone wants to be quiche and niche and cool and doing things that other people aren't doing. So Irish whiskey kicked up. And everyone is just like, yeah, I drink white Irish whiskey. Last night, I did have some whiskey. It was, oh my gosh. It escapes me. What the fuck is it called? It's Irish whiskey, but like, Dickel. Dickel. The first time I heard someone say that, I was like, what is that? What are we talking about dicks for? We're going to talk about the different types of whiskey because it's important, right? We're trying to educate you in the world of whiskey, so yeah. Irish whiskey comes in several forms, with the name of the style depending on the type of grain used during the distillation process. So the one thing we just talked about was the history of Irish whiskey. We didn't really talk about how Irish whiskey is made, which I think we talked about a little bit, but we didn't talk about how you actually make it, which is wild. Is it the process? Let's see. Irish whiskey has a smoother finish as opposed to the smoky, earthy overtones common to Scotch whiskey. Yeah, so we talked about that. But so this does not tell you how the whiskey is made. It just tells us the history of whiskey, which is all I was going for, but that's fine. But just to give you a little insight into whiskey, whiskey is used with like a grain, with a wheat, with a rye type of base. You can make whiskey using those different types of bases, those different type of ingredients in the beginning. When you're just trying to mix it together and create your own type of strain of whiskey. Everybody's whiskey has a different mash bill. And a mash bill is basically the ingredients inside that whiskey to make it taste the way that it tastes. So it can vary. But and we'll talk about bourbons later. But bourbons, which all bourbons are whiskey, but all whiskeys are not bourbons, has a little bit of a different process in order for it to be created. But whiskeys tend to be made with grain. Single malt Irish whiskey. Whiskeys made entirely from malted barley distilled in a pot still within a single distillery are referred to as single malt whiskeys. A style also very commonly associated with Scotch whiskey. These may be double or triple distilled. So the whiskey that I've been showing you that I have in my house, the Jameson, that's a triple distilled whiskey. So that's when they're running through the process. Not once, not twice, you guessed it, trace times. Next you have single pot still whiskey. Single pot still whiskey is made from a mixture of malted and unmalted barley completely distilled in a pot still within a single distillery. This differs from single malt whiskey through the inclusion of raw unmalted grain in the mash. Ooh. This style has also historically been referred to as pure pot still whiskey and Irish pot still whiskey, with other bottlings and memorabilia often bearing these names. Single pot whiskeys were the most common style of Irish whiskey until the emergence of blends in the 20th century. And also, blends are awesome because, you could just, if you have like a little bit left over here and then you have a little bit left over there, you can throw that bitch together and make you a new whiskey. And everybody's like, oh, this shit goes hard. And you're like, I didn't do much. Grain whiskey. Whiskey produced from continuous distillation in a column or coffee still, that's the one that disrupted the industry, rather than a pot still, is referred to as grain whiskey. This may be produced from a variety of grains. Lighter and more neutral in taste, this spirit is rarely found on its own, though some examples exist. The vast majority of grain whiskey is used to make blended whiskey, a product made by mixing column still product with richer and more intense pot still product. So, remember, Ireland really, really, really wants this pot still. They and I don't think they're wrong. I don't think they're wrong at all. It just really sucked the way things went down. But everything should be different. And if you get the better flavor from using a pot still, like, why not? But also create things with a column still so that people can try the old and the new. Business minded, boing. Blended whiskey. A mixture of the above styles, regardless of whether the blended whiskey is made from combining grain whiskey with either single malt whiskey or with single pot still whiskey or both, it is labeled with the same terminology. Blended whiskeys are now the most common style of both Irish and Scotch whiskeys. Now, I have seen a lot of blended Scotch whiskeys. I run across that like more often. But I do not like Scotch. Scotch is not my thing. If I'm drinking Scotch, either I'm bored, I just do not like the taste of it, but some people love it. If I drink Scotch, I used to just drink it straight because everybody else was doing it, but then I was like, I ain't gotta impress you motherfuckers. I'm just gonna drink it with water and, with some seltzer water or soda water. And actually, if you do drink whiskey, you don't have to shoot it straight. I know a lot of people drink it just straight. Just because, it's just what they do. They want the full potency of it. But sometimes when you add other things to the whiskey, it opens up the flavors for you, allows the different aromas and tastes to happen for you. So don't feel bad. If you're like, what kind of whiskey should you try? There's all kinds of whiskey. We focus on the Irish whiskey right now. We know that Jameson is actually the biggest producer of Irish whiskey. So if you're like, I want to try some Irish whiskey today, Jameson is probably going to be your best bet. You go to any liquor store to get you a Jameson to start you out with. If you want to try just whiskey, period, some of you have already tried whiskey. The Canadian whiskey, we drink it all the time in the club. Crown Royal is a whiskey. Now, this is where things gets a little saucy. Some people may call some of the flavored Crown Royal whiskey a liqueur versus a liquor, because liquor in essence doesn't have flavors. Supposedly, the definition says there's not flavors added to it, which is it says there's no flavors added to it. So things like just the regular Crown Royal, it would be a legit liquor. But once you start adding flavorings like the green apple and the peach and all that stuff to it, it starts to become a liqueur. So feel free to check that out. I don't know everything. I just know a little bit of some things. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you just hanging on and listening. Feel free to share, check out my other stuff. I'll be here in Cali for the next several days. I leave Wednesday night. But I hope you guys have a great Sunday. I hope you get up, get out, and do something with your life. Be safe, be sound, be loved. Bye.